The corridor curved like the inside of a living machine, its walls breathing with soft pulses of light that flowed beneath a smooth metallic surface. No edges. No corners. Everything in the Aurelian ring had been designed to comfort species that feared confinement, or perhaps to disorient those that relied too heavily on straight lines. Commander Alara Vance noticed both effects at once. Her boots made no sound as she walked, yet she felt the faint shift of gravity with every step, lighter than home, but not enough to be called effortless. The station maintained a standardized field, carefully calibrated for the average galactic physiology. To most, it was neutral. To her, it felt like walking on the moon. Her right hand brushed her shoulder unconsciously. The band was still there. A narrow ring of matte metal, embedded into the fabric of her suit, barely visible unless you knew where to look. It hummed faintly, too quiet for alien ears, but not for hers. The device did its work, dampening the constant pull her body expected, keeping her movements restrained, controlled, acceptable. Without it, she would stand out. With it, she blended in. Ahead, the corridor widened into an antechamber, and the doors to the council hall loomed, tall, seamless slabs of silver alloy that reflected nothing clearly, as if the surface itself rejected identity. Two figures waited there, both Ketheri. Tall, thin, elongated limbs folded neatly at their sides, their pale exoskeletons etched with faint ridges that caught the overhead glow. Their eyes tracked her as she approached. Black, glossy, unblinking. One inclined its head by a fraction. "Human Anva," it said, its voice filtered through a translation device, smooth and devoid of inflection. "You are late." Alara stopped at the threshold. "I arrived precisely on schedule." The Ketheri did not respond immediately. It studied her, perhaps recalibrating expectations. "Your species' definition of punctuality differs from council standards." She met its gaze without flinching. "We adjust when necessary." A pause. Then the doors parted without sound. Light spilled out, brighter than the corridor, sharper. The chamber beyond was vast, a descending amphitheater carved from the same seamless material. Rows of delegates filled the space, each section subtly altered to accommodate different forms of life. Pools of liquid for aquatic species, suspended platforms for those that hovered, reinforced perches for heavier beings. Every eye, or equivalent, turned toward her. Alara stepped forward. The gravity held steady, but she felt the difference immediately. Open space. Distance. No walls close enough to anchor instinct. Her body compensated automatically, posture straight, stride measured, each movement calculated to appear effortless. The band on her shoulder maintained the illusion. At the center of the chamber stood the dais, where the council's primary delegates gathered. Above them, a ring of floating displays projected symbols, languages, data streams, none of which mattered. What mattered was the figure at the forefront. Archon Virex Thale. Even among the Ketheri, he was imposing. Taller, more elongated, his frame stretched with a precision that suggested design rather than evolution. The ridges along his skull formed a symmetrical pattern, and his eyes, larger than those of his attendants, held a depth that hinted at something colder than simple intelligence. He watched her approach without moving. Alara stopped at the base of the dais. Silence settled, thick and expectant. "Commander Alara Vance," Virex said at last. His voice carried without amplification, smooth yet edged with authority. "Representative of the Human Expansion Initiative." "Alara Vance," she corrected calmly. "Representative of Earth." A flicker, almost imperceptible, passed through the Ketheri's gaze. "Earth," he repeated. "A world of excessive gravity and limited value." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some species shifted, their forms reacting to the statement with unease or curiosity. Others remained perfectly still. Alara did not respond immediately. She let the silence stretch, not in defiance, but in control. "Value is a matter of perspective," she said finally. Virex inclined his head slightly, as though acknowledging the statement without agreeing. "Your species has expanded beyond its designated boundaries. You have established settlements within systems allocated to the Dominion. They were unclaimed, Elara replied. They were unchallenged, Virex corrected. There is a distinction. The words settled heavily. Elara's gaze moved briefly across the chamber. Faces, if they could be called that, watched from every direction. Observing. Measuring. Waiting. You summoned us to negotiate, she said. Not to revise definitions. A low sound, perhaps amusement, emanated from somewhere among the Ketheri. Virex's posture remained unchanged. We summoned you to deliver terms. There it was. Direct. Unmasked? Human expansion will cease, he continued. All existing colonies within Dominion space will be transferred to our control. In exchange, your species will retain access to your origin system. A pause. Compliance will ensure your continued existence. The words echoed, not through volume, but through implication. Elara felt the weight of them settle across the chamber. Not fear. Not yet. But recognition. This was not negotiation. This was submission. She kept her expression neutral. And if we decline? For the first time, Virex moved. A slight shift, barely more than a redistribution of balance, yet it carried intent. Then correction will be applied. The phrase was clinical. Detached. Final. Elara let out a slow breath. Behind her calm, calculations unfolded. Fleet strength. Resource distribution. Known Dominion tactics. Unknown variables. The numbers never favored humanity in a direct confrontation. Not yet. But numbers weren't everything. You assume we will accept those terms, she said. I assume you will recognize reality, Virex replied. A Ketheri attendant stepped forward from the side, its movements fluid in the lower gravity. It carried a slender metallic rod, placing it upright against the floor. With a subtle application of force, it bent the rod, the material yielding under pressure. A demonstration. The chamber responded, subtle shifts, quiet acknowledgments. Virex's gaze returned to Elara. Your species evolved under constraints, he said. Pressure. Density. Limited mobility. You are resilient, perhaps. But resilience does not equate to power. The implication was clear. You survive. We dominate. Elara's fingers tightened slightly at her sides. The band on her shoulder pulsed, maintaining its steady hum. Orders echoed in her mind. Observe. Engage diplomatically. Avoid escalation. She looked at the bent rod. Then back at Virex. You believe physical strength determines dominance, she said. It is one of many factors, he replied. And you believe we lack it. A pause. Your physiology suggests limitations, Virex said. The chamber leaned into the silence. Elara took a single step forward. Measured. Deliberate. Then perhaps, she said, her voice steady, your assessment is incomplete. A ripple moved through the delegates, interest, caution, anticipation. Virex's eyes narrowed by a fraction. Are you offering a demonstration, human? Elara's gaze held his. Not yet, she said. The words hung there, quiet and precise. Not yet. For a moment, nothing moved. Then Virex straightened slightly, his presence expanding across the chamber. You will provide proof of your position, he said. Or you will accept ours. The statement landed like a verdict. Elara inclined her head, just enough to acknowledge the demand. But not enough to concede. Understood, she said. And beneath the controlled stillness, something shifted, subtle, contained, waiting. The weight of Earth was still there. Held back. For now. Silence lingered after Elara's final words, heavy and deliberate, as if the chamber itself waited for something inevitable. Hundreds of eyes, compound, luminous, faceted, liquid, remained fixed on her. No one spoke. No one shifted. Even the ambient hum of the station seemed to fade, replaced by a pressure that pressed inward from every direction. Elara stood still at the base of the dais, posture aligned, breathing steady. Outwardly, she was composed. Inside, her thoughts moved with precision. There were still paths that avoided confrontation. None of them led to respect. Across from her, Archon Virex Theo regarded her without movement, yet his presence filled the space like an unseen force. He had issued a demand, and the council waited for her response, not for negotiation, but for validation. Either humanity would submit quietly, or it would fail publicly. The outcome, in their minds, was already decided. "Commander," Virex said, his voice cutting through the stillness, "you implied our understanding of your species is flawed. Clarify." Elara let a heartbeat pass before answering. "Your evaluation is based on observation within your own parameters." "Parameters are universal," Virex replied. "They are not," she said. "They are convenient." A low murmur stirred among the delegates. The exchange had shifted. Not defiance, not yet, but something sharper. Virex inclined his head, acknowledging the change without conceding ground. "Then correct us." He extended one elongated limb toward the center of the chamber. The Ketheri enforcer stepped forward again, its movements smooth, efficient. It stood taller than Elara by nearly half a meter, its frame built for reach and precision rather than mass. "Demonstrate," Virex said. The enforcer moved to a structural column near the dais, one of many that supported the chamber's architecture. Its surface gleamed, polished to a mirror finish that reflected distorted shapes. The enforcer placed one hand against it, fingers splaying with controlled pressure. Then it tightened its grip. The metal groaned softly, bending inward under the force. Not collapsing, but yielding enough to prove capability. A visible deformation remained, a clean, deliberate mark. A ripple of approval spread through the Ketheri ranks. The enforcer stepped back. The message was simple. "This is strength." Virex's gaze returned to Elara. "We have presented ours." Elara studied the indentation for a moment. Clean. Efficient. Calculated to impress. It worked. On most species. She took a step forward, boots silent against the floor. The distance between her and the column closed quickly, though she did not rush. Every movement remained measured, controlled. She reached out. Her fingers brushed the metal lightly, tracing the curve of the dent. Cool to the touch. Dense. Strong, by galactic standards. Behind her, she felt the attention sharpen. Expectation. Judgment. Her hand lowered. "You performed this under standard gravity," she said. "Yes," Virex replied. Elara nodded once. "Then we are not observing the same conditions." She raised her left hand to her shoulder. The motion was subtle, almost casual. To an untrained eye, it might have seemed like a simple adjustment. But those closest, those who watched carefully, noticed the shift in her focus, the minute change in tension. The band. A faint, steady hum emanated from it, barely audible. The device had been active since she entered the chamber, compensating for the discrepancy between her native environment and the station's field. It kept her aligned, balanced, contained. Elara's fingers found the edge of the device. For a fraction of a second, she hesitated. Orders resurfaced, clear, unambiguous. "Do not escalate. Do not reveal operational advantages. Maintain diplomatic posture." She exhaled slowly. Then disengaged the lock. The hum cut out instantly. The effect was immediate. A low, almost imperceptible vibration passed through the floor beneath her boots, like a distant tremor. The shift was subtle, yet unmistakable, a redistribution of force, localized, contained. Elara's body adjusted in a single fluid motion. Her stance deepened slightly, muscles compensating for the sudden change. The ease with which she moved vanished, replaced by something denser, grounded. Real. Around her, several delegates reacted, minor movements, a ripple of unease that spread outward. Virex's gaze sharpened. "Explain." Elara rolled her shoulder once, the movement controlled but heavier now. "The device I removed regulates my interaction with your environment," she said. It reduces the effective load on my body. A pause. Without it, she continued, I operate at baseline. The chamber absorbed the statement. Baseline. Vyrex's posture shifted, barely, but enough. Your implication? Elara looked at the column again. Then she stepped closer. This time, her movements carried weight. Not sluggishness, but presence, each step grounded, deliberate, leaving no doubt about the force behind it. She placed her hand against the same section of metal the enforcer had bent. Her fingers curled. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the structure gave. Not with a groan, but with a sharp, decisive crack. The surface buckled inward, collapsing under pressure far beyond the previous demonstration. The indentation deepened, warped, the metal folding over itself like thin foil. Elara released it. The column remained deformed, its surface irreversibly altered. Silence followed. No murmurs. No movement. Only stillness. Elara turned back toward the dais, her expression unchanged. This is baseline, she said. The words settled into the chamber, heavy and undeniable. The Ketheri enforcer stepped forward again, faster this time. Not instructed, reactive. Its posture shifted, limbs coiling with intent. A challenge. Elara saw it coming. She did not move. The enforcer closed the distance in a single bound, exploiting the low gravity to propel itself forward with speed and precision. Its arm extended, aiming to seize control, to reassert dominance. Elara stepped to the side. The motion was minimal, almost effortless, yet perfectly timed. The enforcer's grasp met empty space. Its momentum carried it forward off balance. Elara pivoted. Her hand snapped forward, striking the enforcer's center mass. The impact was controlled, but decisive. The enforcer's body lifted from the ground, its frame propelled backward with force far exceeding its own movement. It struck the floor several meters away, sliding to a halt in a tangle of limbs. It did not rise. A collective intake of breath moved through the chamber. Elara lowered her hand. She had not advanced. Had not pressed the advantage. She simply stood. Your environment reduces my effective capability, she said calmly. Yet even here, the difference remains. No one spoke. Not immediately. Vyrex's gaze locked onto her, deeper now, calculating. The certainty that had defined him moments before had shifted, not gone, but altered, forced to accommodate new variables. Your species, he began, then paused. For the first time, he searched for words. Elara met his gaze without hesitation. We evolved under pressure, she said. Constant, unrelenting pressure. Our bodies adapted. She let the statement linger. Yours did not. The silence that followed was different. Not expectation. Not judgment. Understanding. And beneath it, something colder. Caution. The silence that followed the impact did not break, it spread. Across the vast chamber, delegates remained motionless, their attention locked on the human standing alone at the center. The deformed column gleamed under the overhead lights, its twisted shape a permanent record of what had just occurred. A few systems in the room adjusted automatically, compensating for stress fluctuations in the structure, but no one spoke. Elara felt the weight of their attention settle over her. It was different now. No longer dismissive. No longer curious. Measured. Calculated. She bent slightly and retrieved the gravity band from where it hung loose against her suit. The metal was warm from contact, its inner components still cycling down from active use. Without hurry, she secured it back into place. The hum returned. Subtle. Restraining. Her posture shifted again, the density of her presence diminishing just enough to become acceptable within the room. The transformation was quiet, controlled, but unmistakable to those who were watching closely. The enforcer on the far side of the chamber stirred. Slowly it pulled itself upright, movements unsteady. The strike had not been intended to cripple, only to demonstrate. It had done so with clarity. Elara straightened and faced the council. You asked for proof, she said. You have it. A ripple moved through the delegates, not noise, but the collective adjustment of understanding. Data recalculated. Assumptions revised. From one of the lower tiers, a slender figure rose. Its body was translucent, internal structures faintly visible beneath a membrane-like exterior. When it spoke, its voice carried a layered resonance, as though multiple tones overlapped. Clarify your baseline conditions, it said. Quantify the environmental parameters of your origin world. Elara turned toward it. A scientist, she guessed. Not aligned with power, but with knowledge. Earth operates at approximately 1 standard gravity, she replied. Atmospheric density is higher than the galactic average. Surface conditions vary, but environmental stressors are constant. The being tilted slightly, processing. Your species evolved under continuous load exceeding current station parameters. Yes. And this is typical across your population? Elara held its gaze. It is normal. A pause. Then your musculature, skeletal density, and neural response times are all elevated. She inclined her head. Relative to this environment, yes. The statement traveled through the chamber like a quiet shockwave. Not just her. All of them. Across the tiers, subtle reactions emerged, limbs tightening, bodies shifting, postures adjusting as if distance alone might provide safety. For the first time since her arrival, Elara saw something unfamiliar in their responses. Not curiosity. Concern. Virex remained still. But his silence was no longer dismissive. It was analytical. Your demonstration is noted, he said at last. However, individual capability does not define species-wide dominance. Elara turned back toward him. Agreed. The admission caught attention. Virex's gaze narrowed slightly. Then you acknowledge your limitations. We acknowledge reality, she said. She took a step forward, not aggressive, not confrontational, but deliberate. Every movement now carried intention, each word placed with care. Physical strength is only one factor, she continued. You are correct. It does not determine dominance. Virex inclined his head, as though inviting her to continue. But it does define thresholds, Elara said. What can be endured? What can be sustained? She gestured toward the chamber. Your environment is optimized for efficiency. Minimal strain. Controlled conditions. That is the purpose of civilization, Virex replied. Elara's expression remained neutral. On Earth, efficiency was never guaranteed. The words hung for a moment, then deepened. Our gravity is constant. Our weather is volatile. Our ecosystems compete without restraint. Survival requires adaptation. She paused, letting the weight of the statement settle. We did not evolve in balance, she said. We evolved under pressure. The chamber absorbed the idea, not as rhetoric, but as data. Pressure. Force. Endurance. The translucent delegate spoke again, its voice quieter now. Your species thrives under these conditions? We survive them, Elara said. Thriving came later. A faint shift passed through the council. Understanding was building. Virex's voice cut through it. Biological adaptation is irrelevant in the face of technological superiority. The Dominion commands fleets capable of erasing your colonies without direct engagement. There it was. The pivot. Power, reasserted through scale. Elara did not react immediately. She allowed the statement to stand, to settle, to define itself fully before responding. Then she nodded once. Your fleets are formidable. Another admission. Some delegates leaned forward, expecting concession. It did not come. But they are designed for your parameters, she continued. Your ships operate within tolerances that match your physiology. Virex's posture shifted, almost imperceptibly. Explain. Elara clasped her hands loosely behind her back, adopting a stance that balanced control with ease. Acceleration limits, she said. Structural stress thresholds. Maneuvering tolerances. All optimized for crews that cannot endure excessive force. A pause. Human vessels are not. The words landed with quiet precision. Our ships are built to operate under higher gravitational loads, she continued. Our materials are denser. Our reinforcement standards exceed yours. She met Virex's gaze directly. Our crews can withstand maneuvers that would incapacitate yours. The chamber fell into a deeper silence. Calculations shifted again. Vectors changed. If true, the implications were immediate. Combat dynamics would not be equal. A delegate from an upper tier spoke, its voice sharp. You claim superior maneuverability? I state compatibility with higher stress conditions, Elara replied. Interpretation is yours. The distinction mattered. She was not boasting. She was informing. Virex's eyes held hers, unblinking. You present these facts as deterrents. I present them as context, Elara said. A long pause followed. Then she took another step forward. We did not come here to threaten, she said. If we intended war, this conversation would not exist. The statement was calm, but its meaning was unmistakable. Restraint. Choice. The room shifted again, the tension changing direction. Fear alone did not define it now. There was something else, uncertainty, perhaps, or recognition of a variable not yet fully understood. We seek cooperation, Elara continued. Trade. Exchange. Mutual advancement. Her gaze moved across the council, meeting as many as she could. Not subjugation. The word lingered. Virex straightened, his presence expanding once more, though the edge had changed. And if cooperation is denied? Elara returned her focus to him. Then you will have made a decision, she said. Not a threat. A statement. The distinction was deliberate. Virex studied her, longer this time, his silence stretching as the chamber held its breath. The certainty that had defined him at the beginning of the session was no longer absolute. It had fractured, just enough to reveal doubt beneath it. But not enough to yield. At last he spoke. The Dominion does not negotiate under coercion, he said. Neither do we, Elara. The chamber held its breath. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence had weight now, a pressure that settled over every tier, every delegate, every observer suspended within the vast amphitheater. The conversation had reached its edge, and beyond it lay only consequence. Elara stood at the center, her posture steady, her expression composed. The hum of the gravity band at her shoulder pulsed softly, a constant reminder of restraint, of control. She could feel the difference it made, the way it reduced the load her body expected, the way it kept her within acceptable limits. Acceptable. Across from her, Archon Virex Theo remained motionless. His elongated frame seemed carved from stillness, but the shift in his presence was unmistakable. The certainty that had defined him at the beginning of the session had been altered, not erased, but sharpened into something more dangerous. Calculation had replaced assumption. You have presented your case, Virex said, his voice carrying with precise clarity. And yet you offer no concession. Elara met his gaze. We offer cooperation. You offer defiance, he replied. The distinction hung between them, narrow and unyielding. Around the chamber, delegates shifted subtly. The council had listened. It had observed. Now it waited, not for more explanation, but for resolution. Elara took a slow breath. There was a moment, brief but clear, where she could still step back. Reframe. Soften the stance, defer the decision, delay the outcome. It would preserve the illusion of diplomacy, buy time, perhaps even avoid immediate conflict. It would also confirm every assumption the Dominion had made. That humanity would bend. She lifted her hand to her shoulder. The motion was deliberate this time. Not subtle. Not concealed. Every eye followed it. The gravity band's surface reflected the chamber lights in faint, shifting patterns. A small device. Compact. Unremarkable, until it wasn't. Elara Vance? Virex said, his tone sharpening. Do not mistake demonstration for leverage. She did not look away from him. I don't, she said quietly. Her fingers closed around the band. The chamber seemed to tighten. You misunderstand something, she continued. We have not been negotiating from a position of strength. The words drew attention, sharper than any display of force. Virex's gaze narrowed. Then from what position? Elara disengaged the lock. The hum ceased. The shift was immediate. A low vibration passed through the floor, more pronounced this time, as though the structure itself registered the change. The subtle adjustment of her stance followed, her weight settling fully into the environment, unfiltered, uncompensated. Real. She lowered her hand, letting the band hang loose. I've been negotiating from restraint, she said. The difference was visible. Not in size, not in posture, but in presence. Every movement carried more density, more certainty. She did not appear larger. She appeared anchored. Immovable. A ripple of unease spread across the chamber. Several delegates recoiled slightly, instincts reacting before logic could intervene. Elara stepped forward. Each footfall landed with quiet finality, the sound barely audible, yet felt. She stopped a few meters from the dais. Close enough. Virex did not retreat. But he did not advance either. Observe, Elara said. She turned slightly, lowering herself to one knee. The motion was controlled, deliberate, devoid of aggression. Her gloved hand pressed against the polished floor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the surface fractured. Not a dramatic collapse, not a violent break, just a controlled application of force. The material beneath her palm compressed, microfractures spreading outward in a fine network, barely visible but undeniable. She lifted her hand. The imprint remained. A mark. Not destruction. Potential. Elara rose smoothly and faced the council once more. This is what we are, she said. No challenge. No threat. Just truth. Silence followed, deeper than before. Not uncertainty, recognition. Virex's voice cut through it, sharper now. And you present this as justification for expansion? Elara shook her head once. No. She met his gaze directly. I present it as context for choice. The words settled into the chamber. Choice. We did not ask for your territory, she continued. We settled where no one stood. We built where nothing existed. Her voice remained steady, but there was weight behind it now, not force, but conviction. You see expansion as intrusion, she said. We see it as survival. A pause. But survival does not require domination. The distinction mattered. It shifted the frame. Virex straightened slightly, his presence rising again, though something beneath it had changed. And yet you refuse to yield. Elara held his gaze. We refuse to submit, she said. The correction was precise. Across the chamber, the council reacted, not with noise, but with attention. Lines were being drawn, not in territory, but in principle. Virex's eyes fixed on her, unblinking. Then understand the consequence, he said. The Dominion does not tolerate resistance. Elara took a step closer. The distance between them narrowed. Not aggressively. Inevitably. And understand ours, she replied. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. We do not mistake restraint for weakness. The words hung in the air, sharp and clear. For a moment, the chamber balanced on a single point, one decision, one movement away from fracture. Then a voice rose from the lower tiers. Motion to review Dominion claim authority. The interruption broke the standoff. Heads turned. The translucent delegate stood again, its form shimmering faintly under the lights. The Council has not ratified exclusive control over unoccupied systems, it said. The Dominion's claim exceeds agreed parameters. Another voice followed, from a different tier. Seconded. A third. Support. The chamber shifted. Momentum. Not toward conflict, but away from it. Virex turned slightly, his attention flickering across the delegates. For the first time, the balance of the room moved against him, not through force, but through alignment. Process. Authority. The structures of the council reasserted themselves. This matter requires deliberation, another delegate said. Immediate enforcement is not justified. Virex's posture remained rigid, but the certainty had fractured. Not broken, yet, but no longer absolute. Elara stepped back, giving the space room to shift. She had not forced the outcome. She had revealed enough for others to choose. The distinction held. After a long moment, Virex inclined his head, slightly, controlled. The Dominion will not concede its position, he said. Nor do we expect you to, Elara replied. The exchange settled, no longer a confrontation, but a boundary. Clear. Defined. The immediate threat receded, not eliminated, but delayed, redirected into channels that required time, debate, negotiation. Space. Elara reached up and secured the gravity band back into place. The hum returned. The weight lifted, partially. She exhaled slowly. The chamber no longer pressed inward. It observed. Measured. Reconsidered. Without another word, she turned and began to walk toward the exit. No one stopped her. No one challenged her. Behind her, the council continued to shift, voices rising, alliances forming, arguments beginning. The future remained uncertain, conflict still possible, perhaps inevitable. But not here. Not now. At the threshold, she paused for a fraction of a second. Then she stepped through. The doors closed behind her with silent precision. And for the first time since entering, the weight of Earth felt exactly where it belonged. Not as a burden, but as a choice.